saying starting recording for you?
Yes, there we go.
Well, you got to allow your camera. Right.
All
That's
right,
actually
nice.
recording now. Right. Off we go. We've
Good.
just kicked it off anyway. We've managed to hit record, so now things are recording. And I'm just asking you, Owen, how's it going? How are you coping with lockdown? How are you passing the time? How's just like your state of mind?
I'm all right, surprisingly, because I've been I couldn't get out to my family who live in Dubai, so I couldn't get back to my parents before lockdown started. They cancelled all the flights. So the worst bit of that was kind of the uncertainty of knowing, because I had a flight in Manchester booked, and then the night before it looked like, everything's locked down. And that was like the worst point of this whole situation for me personally, but just having that uncertainty of whether I'm going to be able to see my family. And then it turned out I didn't. But then soon after that, once I knew that, I wasn't going to have to be sleeping in airports and all that shit, I can just stay here safe. I've been fine. Like, I've been really happy. I'm also the only one in my flat of 10 people. But again, I've been kind of enjoying solitude really, because although there's downsides to that, obviously, like I can also just blast my music out and just run around the house like semi-naked and don't have to worry about anything. So there is liberty to being so free. Yeah, I'm filling my time up mostly with just entertainment really. A lot of music. I listen to a lot of old music. Been watching some podcasts, a few Joe Rogan podcasts, playing a few games. But yeah, my state of mind has been really quite positive actually, surprisingly so. I've been coping really well, I think.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah,
definitely challenges that come with there's different challenges depending on your circumstances, right? So
I think
because
so,
me and
definitely.
you are having very different experiences of this thing. You're
Mm,
in Lancaster now, like you're experiencing this sort of like solitude, right? There's not many.
yeah,
You said you're the only one in the flat, right?
yeah. I'm the only one
Yeah.
that's I haven't spoken to anybody like in person for ages. I
Seriously.
hardly. Well, other than like shop cashier, I spoke to the maintenance man once when he came, but there's nobody here. It's
Is it
just
not
me.
driving you a bit mental though? Like not
Not
having that
really. I
human to
kind of
human.
thought it would be, unless maybe I've just gone past it. I'm just crackpot crazy. I might be, and I just blissfully unaware. But yeah, I've been in Discord calls. I do talk to people over calls most days, even if it's just through like games and stuff. Nothing deep or anything. But yeah, surprisingly, yeah, my mental like just well-being is probably better than it was in term for some reason. I don't know. It's weird, it's strange. I'm just very happy at the moment, but yeah, I'm not complaining, so I'll take it. So what about
So
you?
well, I'm with, like I say, I'm having like quite a different experience to you
Mm,
because I'm at home with my family, and we have some good days and some bad days. Like today's quite a challenging day. We've been kind of getting on each other's nerves, like irritating.
mm,
Some days it's fine. Some days we're getting on better than normal because we're sort of all forced to live together and we're forced to communicate a lot more. But then other days it's just a challenge. Like I'm not going to mention who in my family, but someone in my family this morning was having this nightmare during the night, and they woke up in the morning like shouting with rage. They like woke up from this nightmare, and they were like, "Rah!" Like, and everyone in the house was like, What was going on? Why are you shouting like that?" And they were like, "Oh, I was just having this nightmare. I was really angry." And not connected to that, but I actually also happened to wake up this morning just like irritable. Like nothing
mm.
had happened. There wasn't anything going on. No one had said anything, or it's just exactly the same as any other day. But I just woke up like irritable. Like
Just already,
I need my own
yeah. Oh,
space because I've been cooped up in this house now with four other people. Like I haven't left the house in weeks, only to go for like little walks and
mm.
that kind of thing. So it's like no privacy. You can hear every conversation in the house, and it's just everyone's sort of we're learning to tolerate each other though, because if someone has a bad day, we know it's understandable. You kind of got to accept it. Like
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
yeah. No, yeah. I've thought a lot about how people like at home with family are coping during this. I've been somebody. I've always had a very good relationship with my family, so
Would you
um,
prefer to be with your family now?
I mean, I'd say I would, although I can see the potential for it just to be, us four just bickering and being at each other's throats. Because at the moment, although I miss them, the prospect of seeing them again is very appealing, and it's just, something I really want, and it makes you realize how much you love them when you're not there, and you can't be there. So yeah, I don't know. But then I can see where you're coming from. I bet if I was with them at the moment, yeah, we probably would be bickering and arguing. I'm not surprised.
Are you keeping up with like Skype and social
Yeah,
media?
yeah, we call like once every 2 days. And my brother, he's also, well, he's in the army, so
Is
he's not
he?
alone, but he's in the mess. Yeah, he's in.
Is it the Dubai army?
No, no, no. He's in the UK. He's down in Kent, I think, or something at the moment. Basically, he did Sandhurst last year, became an
Oh
officer, and
wow.
this year he's in his Part 2 training bit. So he's at the Royal Engineers. So he's basically in the mess, and he's basically on holiday at the moment because he's not doing anything. So he's hanging. So again, he's not with the parents, but he's keeping really happy. He's got company, to be fair. He's got his own mess friends and whatever. But yeah, no, we all seem to be really happy. Yeah.
Have you been
So
doing? Have you been getting much exercise? Have you been going for your once
no.
a day government sanctioned run?
Not really. I've had the odd walk, like behind, well, yeah, in the green areas of Lancaster. I obviously have to go and get food at Sainsbury's every few days, but I try and limit to the big shops just so I don't have to go out much. I should really. I've been thinking and just contemplating of doing like an in-house kind of exercise thing. Because we've got so many stairs in this house. I could just run up and down them, but I just haven't. So, yeah, I was talking about this to another mate. Like, I feel I've become even lazier in
Yeah.
quarantine than I was in term, and I wasn't the most
Because you
studious student.
can justify your laziness now. Like
Yeah.
in the past, you'd feel like lazy and you'd feel bad if you were just spending all day inside playing video games. But now it's like,
Mm.
oh no, I'm being a good citizen.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I'm saving the world by just not
Basically,
leaving
yeah.
bed for 3 hours.
I've had a bit of trouble like keeping my sleep schedule relatively normal. Like
Mm.
say I've had some good weeks, some bad weeks, and the bad weeks include too much drinking, too much video games, and just letting my sleep schedule like drift to a point where I'm going to bed at 5 in the morning. This week's
Yeah,
been pretty good. I've pulled myself around. I've been like drinking more water than I have booze, and I've been
yeah.
playing less video games. I think I went to bed at about 2 last night, which is pretty reasonable. I'm just
Mm.
trying to keep some like some anchor, you know what I mean? Like some
Yeah,
schedule,
some
some
structure.
structure to it, because it's so easy just for one day to blur into the next and
Yeah.
to constantly put stuff off.
Mm. No, I feel like that. It is kind of feels like one big long day. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what day it is anymore. Like,
I think it's Friday, I think.
I only found out, yeah, today it was Friday because I found out about 2 hours ago I've got some bloody coursework to do for seminars. I didn't realize I had online seminars for linguistics, but oh well, I should do that.
You've still
What
got
was I going to say?
assignments to do.
Yeah, so it looks like I've still got weekly seminars for linguistics, and I've also got an essay for linguistics due in a few days. But I've had that, for ages. That's been set. So, although obviously for psychology there's no exams, and for linguistics there's no exams. So,
It's all done for me now. That's
yeah,
it. That's first year complete.
yeah. How
We
mad
paid
is that?
£9,000 for like
I know. I
25
think
weeks
that
of, and we've had 12 weeks of face-to-face lectures. It's kind of nuts,
ridiculous.
really. And they still want all the bloody tuition fees, don't they? And
Mm.
they wanted rent until very recently. Is it the same with you, your accommodation?
For us, they did do a refund scheme. However, because I'm still here, I kind of thought it better. I thought it through, and I'm gonna pay the next month's rent because we had to move our stuff all out. And at the moment, I've literally got I've got nowhere else to go. So I thought I might as well have that safety option of just having a place here for the foreseeable future. So I'm still paying, but although yeah, they did do a scheme where you could refund it if you're out in a few weeks, but because my situation's precarious, yeah, I'm just staying here for now.
Have you got any
But yeah.
long-term plans? Like, do you know what's going to happen? Like, are you going to stay there over summer? Are you hoping to go back to Dubai? Like, have you got
Um,
anything in your calendar?
I think at the moment, I'd want to go back to Dubai to stay with my family, like as soon as flights resume, really, because I mean I've been up here already for a month, so I don't really need to be up here anymore. And yeah, past that, for summer we always stay in the UK anyway, and we've got
Okay.
like a caravan in Mid Wales, so that's where we'll go for summer. But yeah, I don't know. Just all plans have kind of been out the window. It's just live every day as it comes, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
just try and keep happy every day.
because everything's been cancelled and everything's been thrown in the air. And I was looking at my calendar the other day, and I don't have any reason to go out the house until university starts in October.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's
everything's
the same for
cancelled.
me.
I've got
Yeah,
no, it's everything's fucking cancelled. Like the world's just come to a grinding
wild, isn't it?
halt. and we're all just here in sort of this weird limbo state, like, oh, what's going to happen? When's it going to happen? Like the government don't even know when they're going to open it all up. Like I was
Yeah,
listening to
I mean, nobody really knows. I think.
Nicola, Nicola Sturgeon. She's
Mm.
like what's her official position? Leader of Scotland. No, what's her like official title?
First Minister.
First
Yeah.
Minister. Yeah, and she was saying that these restrictions could go on until the end of the year. So I'm
Mm.
hoping we won't be cooped up in our houses till the end of the year, but it
Yeah.
looks like it's going to be a long time before everything's reopened. Like clubs are reopened and pubs are reopened and restaurants are reopened. It's going to
Yeah.
take a long time.
It's so strange, man. And I always think of like small businesses. They've been struggling and dying for the past umpteen years already, and this has just been the nail in the coffin. Like you have to close your business. Like, what do you do? It's I don't know. It's just, yeah. I mean, nobody knows. I was
Yeah.
looking today. I was looking at like the response and general opinions on the response, and everything's different. Like all the opinions are different. They're all unsure and vague. It's just you can't really find anything out because nobody knows anything. Like nobody knows any more than you do, really.
Yeah.
Um, it's just so strange. But
How are you
yeah,
feeling like optimistic about it? Do you think once this is all done, we will bounce back and it will have a recovery and it'll just be like it was before? And this might even, in a sense, be kind of good for us. It might give us like an appreciation for things which we didn't have an appreciation for in the past. Or do
mm,
you think it could go another way and the economy's totally messed up? Loads of people jobless, people angry, all those small businesses dying. Like, are you feeling hope and optimism for the future, or do you think there's big
I
challenges ahead?
think I'm more optimistic than pessimistic. I don't think the world will go back to what it was. I think this will change something, at least for a while. I hope it does. Uh, and yeah, I'd say I'm more optimistic because I think, as you say, um, for example, in my case, just I've become more appreciative of my parents, like now that I can't see them in person, and things that now that our liberties have been restricted, I feel like you appreciate them more once we get them back, which hopefully we will, as long as it doesn't
Hopefully.
devolve into some tyranny. And if David Icke is to be believed or something, it will. But I think, yeah, I think I'm optimistic for the future, although I'm still very unsure.
I think what you mentioned there about sort of like our rights and our liberties and making sure we get them back, I think that's like a massive concern. Like I get scared when I kind of see the police. Um, well, we've heard stories about police like patrolling certain aisles in supermarkets and checking people's shopping to make sure that they're only buying essential goods, and people not being allowed to play on front gardens and
Mm,
and that kind of thing. Like this sort of eagerness to like really enforce rules, which some might see as being like kind of unnecessary and kind of being a bit over the top. And I hope we don't sort of normalize this like this destruction of our civil
yeah,
rights,
just
because I
more
understand like
policing.
it makes sense. It has to be done in the short term, but I don't want it to become the norm. I don't want.
Yeah,
So, there's worries about surveillance as well. Like the government's going to have to sort of start like tracking our movements more and to
well,
monitor the spread of
yeah,
virus.
this virus does give them like the perfect excuse to start doing so, and
Mm.
we just got to hope that we get the liberties back here as promised and what we had before. Um,
Do you trust
yeah.
the government? Do you think? How do you think they're dealing with this?
Um, I think they were a bit slow. I think they tried to do like the herd immunity response first. That was like their first kind of port of call, but then they realized, okay, if we do that, yeah, we can make everyone immune, but we'll also lose about half the population. So eventually they did
Not
lockdown.
ideal.
Yeah. Which, so I don't think it's been awful. I think they've done like, I think they've done the right thing after they realized herd immunity wasn't working. I think lockdown was started a bit late. Um, but I think it's all right at the moment. Yeah, I mean, looking at the responses of other countries, uh, they all seem. I don't think we're that much worse than the other ones.
Is it pretty much the same in Dubai as well?
In Dubai, it's no, they're restricting more freedoms actually. Only today they lifted. Before the last few weeks have been, you have to apply online for a permit to leave the house. You have to wear masks and gloves when you're outside, and then you
Wow.
have to say exactly where you're going, how long you're going to be, and if you're not, then there are police on the roads. But although today they've lifted that, so now you can go outside whenever you want. You don't need permits or anything. It's not that draconian anymore. But I think there's still masks and gloves, and there's still no flights going in or anything. So they've had a more severe lockdown, but they are starting to lift it now. To be fair,
Yeah. And
that's
have
how it
they
is
had,
over there.
have you been following like the stats in Dubai? Like, do you know if they've had it any worse or any
I haven't
better?
actually.
My mum's like
Imagine,
addicted. Oh,
yeah, I imagine it's probably. I don't know. I haven't. Yeah, I just don't know really. I haven't checked. And I'm not sure. Like looking at figures at the moment, it's so hard to tell what you're looking at because are they testing figures? Are they deaths? Like what deaths are they? Are they always coronavirus deaths? Like I could have coronavirus and just be asymptomatic. There's plenty of people that are. I have no idea. I
well,
haven't been tested. I don't
there's
intend
some
to get.
parts of the world where they think like 50 to 70% of people might be asymptomatic. And I
Mm,
saw something a few months ago. I think it was from Oxford, and it was some epidemiologist saying that up to 50% in the country could have already got it.
yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. Like, there's no reason to say I don't have it if I could be asymptomatic. I've no idea. Um, I think following stats and things. I was looking today and trying to form an opinion, and it's just they're all so subjective, and nobody knows what they're talking about. I
No
feel
one
like
even
at the
really
moment.
knows what this virus is. Like,
Yeah,
we're still trying to figure this thing out.
yeah. What the bloody hell is it?
Oh,
Uh,
we were going to talk about a little bit about conspiracies. I definitely wanted to. But you
hmm
know what I was reading into today?
mm,
Um, this isn't like fake news, like anyone can go and check it out. But like, there's been this conspiracy out there. Some people have been saying that, oh, this is a Chinese bioweapon, like it was
mm,
manufactured in some Chinese lab. And like, that's been solidly classed as like a conspiracy theorist.
yeah.
But it actually turns out there's this very famous French virologist. He won the Nobel Prize in 2008. He's one of the co-discoverers of the AIDS virus. His
Oh
name
wow.
is Luc Magio, something like that. Luke, and then something beginning with an M.
Right.
He's a very famous but controversial virologist, and he's looked at the genome of this thing. And inside the genome of COVID, there's actually elements of the AIDS virus and elements of malaria in the genome.
Mm,
And he says that there's no reason for those biological sort of uh, genomic units to be in the COVID, and he thinks that points to the fact that this thing might be man-made. Now, I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know anything
yeah.
about the genome of COVID, but it is somewhat suspicious at the very least that Wuhan just happened to have this sort of biosafety facility which specializes in coronaviruses themselves.
Yeah, it's definitely you can yeah, it'd be stupid to disregard that completely, I think. But I do think it's a lot more probable because I mean nature clearly has the ability to make such a devastating weapon as we've seen with AIDS and stuff.
Yeah.
So
And there's conspiracies out there that say AIDS is
oh
man-made.
yeah,
It
I
seems
mean
like
just going down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
every time one of these like new viruses emerges, people are like,
It's
"This is
man-made.
man-made." Even stuff like the plague, even like back in medieval times, people were
Really?
like accusing. Well, people, the big thing was like anti-Semitism, like not
That's
accusing
interesting.
Jewish people of creating it, but accusing
Mm,
Jewish people of spreading it. And I think one of the reasons why this was like obviously hundreds of years ago in like the fucking dark ages when
mm.
people were like morons, but because Jewish people have like they would wash themselves to pray. They'd have like hygiene standards which would be slightly higher than the average population, and so
Mm.
that would mean that when the plague did hit like towns and settlements and cities, Jewish people would be less likely to get infected, and so
Right.
because of that, one thing
People are
led to another.
suspicious, yeah.
Yeah, and all that obviously all that anti-Semitism anyway. So there's always been like conspiracy theories that have emerged when these kind of viruses happen.
Yeah, I feel like some people just, I mean, this is clearly a problem, like whether it's man-made or not, it's a problem at the moment that's facing all of humanity. And some people still kind of point the blame at other humans, even though it might be, but I feel like your energy shouldn't really be, diverged towards that. And it should be, just, yeah, keeping morale up, keeping positive, because this is a crisis and we've got to deal with it. I feel
Why do you
like pointing fingers, it doesn't really help at the moment.
Why do you think there is that tendency for people to point fingers and people to blame?
Um, I'd say it's just people's egos, I think. I think it's just me versus you, us and them mentality. It's just, well, I didn't do it. You must have done it. I
Yeah.
mean, in reality, it's probably nobody. But I feel like, yeah, some people who just can't really see past their ego think, I don't know, yeah, somebody else has done it. Really, I'm not sure. Maybe they just haven't thought it through enough, and it's just the first answer that comes to mind.
It's possibly because the thing that's so insidious and scary about a virus is you can't see it. It's almost like this
Mm.
invisible supernatural killer that's
Yeah.
out there, and it's like it is almost supernatural. It kind of
Mm.
activates the same part of the brain, and I feel there's sort of like a tendency to think, how can we fight this? And a good way of fighting it is to sort of take all that fear and suspicion and anger and rage and to put it onto someone. And a lot
Mm.
of the people, some people are putting it on the government, some people are putting it on medical authorities, but a lot of people are putting it on just normal Chinese people, people who
Mm.
people who might be like British or American, but just so happen to look like somewhat like
Yes.
a person from that part of the world, because we're seeing all this like increases in racism and just like
Mm.
a kind of nastiness, which is like really unpleasant.
Yeah, I just think that's terrible because I don't know, in my experiences, I'm not one to get angry much, but it never really helps me when I do. When I'm angry, it's not very nice. I don't like being angry. It's horrible. And I feel like when they're directing that anger to somebody else, just makes them sad. So it's like it just brings, the mentality and morale of two people down. It's just destructive, really. It's more destructive. Well, it's just leading to more destruction than the virus is already causing by blaming other people, I think. Um, yeah.
What do you think of? We were talking a little earlier this week about David Icke's his interesting 5G
Yeah.
conspiracy, which is
I didn't really see much on the 5G bit. I think because I only saw like an excerpt of it. I haven't I haven't really seen. Yeah, I don't have a full opinion on the 5G thing. I think
people are burning masts down.
I know, and I feel like either there's a lot of stupid people about, but I feel like this conspiracy is so widespread that maybe there isn't, smoke without fire, and surely there must be some basis to this, mass panic, or is it literally just a panic? Um, I'm just not sure. I just want to see some evidence. Like, if it doesn't cause it, okay, just stop burning masts. But if there's so much doubt, then I feel like maybe there is something to do with
I
it.
think there might be something to do with it. The media
Yeah.
certainly seems like, of all the conspiracies that have ever existed, like the media does seem to be particularly focused on dismissing this one. It might just be
Mm,
because of the damage that's being done, because there's a lot of conspiracies out there, but very few conspiracy theories have become so widespread that people have actually taken action because of
action,
them.
yeah.
And there's been like several 5G masts which have been burnt down in this country.
Which is right. Yeah, because something like flat Earth, although it's quite laughable and ridiculous, it doesn't really harm anybody. Like, I don't mind if you're a flat earther, that's fine by me. Just don't try and impose it on me. Or don't try and burn masts
What
down
could you
because of
burn
it.
down if you're a flat earther
Yeah,
then?
burn
Like
the earth.
astronomy towers? I don't
Burn
know.
space. It's not real. Um, but yeah, I feel like because so many people are taking action and believing it, that I feel like, is there something to it? Have they just, because I haven't researched it that much, and maybe people are, looking into it a lot and finding basis. I don't trust 5G. I think the amount of there was distrust of 5G long before coronavirus was a thing. I do think that distrust isn't unfounded, and there might be, and we should, halt and do some more research on this stuff. But to say that it causes a virus seems very, like, I don't know, seems very, what am I trying to say? Outstretched. Like, it seems a stretch to think that. But I mean, I don't know.
This is sort of one of the things that's kind of irritating me in the media, because one can think that 5G has potential negative effects on the body. One can think that, but also think that it doesn't cause
Hmm,
coronavirus. It might be like unhealthy for us, and it might have sort of adverse health effects. That doesn't mean
yeah,
it causes coronavirus. But
yeah,
the media is sort of conflating this all together and saying, "Oh no, 5G is perfectly safe, it's perfectly sound." But there's a lot of like research out there which points to the fact that maybe
yeah.
this
There's a few
thing
red flags
shouldn't
there.
be installed like globally.
Hmm.
Maybe we should take it kind of incrementally and see what happens, and like make sure that it is all safe and sound.
Yeah, I would have thought like most of the fears with 5G would be more radiation based. or something to do with that microwave radiation or something, as opposed to spontaneously creating viruses. And maybe you're right in saying that the way the media are trying to quash the whole 5G thing, you know, of the 5G coronavirus thing, is making them quash all of the 5G fears, when in reality maybe there should be some, and they just shouldn't be, towards coronavirus, but towards, radiation or something, or whatever the 5G concerns are.
Yeah. It also sort of speaks to this issue of free speech, because I don't know whether you've been following this, but YouTube's actually, I saw an interview with, I think she's YouTube's CEO. She's a woman, and she was given an interview the other day, and she was saying that YouTube's going to actually start taking down conspiracy videos about COVID, including all this 5G stuff. She said, if anything is out there that's deliberately spreading misinformation, we're going to take it down. And on top of that, she said, if there's anyone out there spreading medical misinformation which isn't in line with what the the World Health Organization, is saying, that too's going to come down. So YouTube sort of, it's setting up this situation where people aren't allowed to challenge institutions and authority.
Yeah, it's
and
dangerous.
That really worries me, because even if all this, I don't think 5G causes coronavirus. I think that's like a nonsense. I'm not saying 5G is totally safe, but I don't think it causes the virus.
Yeah, me too.
But people should be allowed to suggest it.
Yeah.
And people should definitely be allowed to challenge medical authority, because that's the fucking essence of a free society.
Yeah.
Can't start.
No, I definitely think so. Because watching David Icke or Alex Jones or something, I don't think most people believe everything they say. But I feel like there is a grain of truth in there somewhere. They do have, there is some truth while watching them, and that truth is being shut down when you shut all of them down. It's just, I feel like Alex Jones has said this himself. I think when you become so focused on conspiracy theories, you think everything is conspiracy theory. You go nuts, I think, and you just start, your ideas start getting more, colourful and unrealistic. So that all of that gets mixed in with the stuff that you originally had, which might have had, based on truth, might have been based on truth. So it just gets diluted with all this random crap like coronavirus 5G. When there is, stuff like Pizzagate, whatever, some real concerns, underneath them.
People have mentioned Epstein on this podcast before, but no one's ever mentioned Pizzagate before. So I'm glad we've had one first. But Pizzagate is definitely something that people should not ignore.
Yeah, there is, there's some things that Alex Jones says that are just, I've searched them up. You hear him say it, like, is that true? You search it up, oh, it is. Why isn't that like a concern? Why didn't I know that before? Because that is quite alarming. But then there's other things he says which are just clearly fabricated and ridiculous and are misinformation, to be fair. But they still shouldn't be shut down, because I think by watching people like him, it's like the complete opposite of what the general narrative is. And I think maybe the truth lies in the middle between those two extremes, and you need to see both to get a balanced opinion.
Plus, if you start censoring these people, you just force them underground. Like Alex Jones is still broadcasting. He's still on. He's got his own website. He's still selling all his products, and you can't unless you're gonna like silence someone. You can't stop someone speaking, and Alex Jones is still out there.
I feel like all that does is that makes it worse, because it isolates this whole community to this other platform where it's only Alex Jones, and he's the only narrative. Like on what's his Infowars, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Infowars is only him talking, and then you don't get the balanced narrative again. Then you're getting only that side, and then you just go nuts, I think, because you need both sides, I think, to have a balanced opinion. It's just,
My attitude is sort of like sunlight is the best disinfectant. And so if there's like a terrible idea out there, and there's lots of terrible ideas out there, like the best way of challenging them is to expose them to debate and discussion and skepticism. But when you sort of force Alex Jones and David Icke underground and force them onto their own websites, in a sense, it sort of validates what they're saying, because people think, why are they shutting these people up? Like, if they were just nonsense,
maybe I should watch them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it sort of drives people towards them.
Yeah, especially when I feel like there's a lot of distrust with governments at the moment anyway, if you just look at the state of the world. And when the government or some sort of media corporation silences somebody, people often just look at it because it's silent. It's like, what's it called? The Barbra Streisand effect. That's, if you silence something, people will look at it because Yeah, it's just in their nature. The proper way to go about it, if they're spreading misinformation, is to publish a video saying why they're wrong, how they're wrong. Here is the evidence that they're wrong. Stop listening to them, and then, yeah, as you said, sunlight. Just tell the truth or whatever.
I sometimes like pretending to be a flat earther, just so I
Mm,
can I can challenge people's thinking. Like
yeah.
I'll be like, oh well, I'll pretend I'll be like, well, I believe the Earth is flat. Like, convince me otherwise. Like, why is it round? And you can
Mm,
see people kind of like are a bit puzzled. Like, oh, they've never had to sort of justify their own beliefs to themselves. Like, they've just assumed like, oh, this is what authority says. Even if it's
mm.
scientific authority, this is just what I'm going to believe. But I don't think that's like necessarily the healthiest thing. Just to like be told something and accept it
And
because authority
yeah,
says so. You should have your own like understanding of something before you accept it. And so it's
yeah, I think.
interesting pretending to be a flat earther just to get people thinking like, oh, why do I think what I think?
Like, yeah, I've no idea really. I've never seen the edge of the world, or I've never seen if the world is round. I don't know that the world is round. I've no proof of that. I don't know that space is real either, but I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah,
Um, so I'll go with that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this whiskey's getting me. I can't
I
think
think
anymore.
as this lockdown goes on as well, people might become increasingly susceptible to conspiracist thinking, as along with a whole other effect, like set of effects which will take place. But like the longer this goes on, the more pent up people will get, and the more angry
Yeah.
they'll get, and the more like just desiring of just being able to go outside. We've already seen in the US, there's been protests in the US, like
Mm.
people like protesting their right to go outside, and I think maybe in parts of Europe we've been seeing the same thing. Um, did you see what Trump was tweeting the other day about? He was tweeting like "liberate Louisiana." He was tweeting "liberate" and then the name of a state because he was
Right.
he like
Why?
almost
Because they were
encouraging,
protesting.
yeah, like almost encouraging citizens to rise up against the state government and
Mm.
demand their freedom. It's like,
It's strange that although he's the head of government, and there's so many controversies about Trump, there is something about him that makes you question government because he does often provide like an alternative narrative. Because the other day he cut ties with the WHO, which is just like, oh wow, like you must have done that for a reason. Again, there can't be smoke without fire. I think when the president of your country, of a country like America, disbands the WHO, then either he's doing something mad, which he usually is, but it sows that seed of like distrust in big groups and things. Like why would he distrust the WHO? I don't know.
yeah. I think it's like that with a lot of things he's done. Like I remember a couple of years ago, he was threatening to withdraw funding from NATO, the
Oh yeah.
military alliance.
Mm,
And when I first saw that headline, I was like, why is he doing that? Why would he want to like? That's like an alliance which keeps Europe and America safe. Like, why would he want
yeah.
to withdraw funding from that? But when you actually look into his arguments, he's saying, well, we pay like way more than anyone else. Like the US is covering the costs of all the other countries in that alliance, which aren't paying their fair shares. And when you
Mm,
see that, like he was the sort of the first one to even draw my attention to that. It's like, hang on, if we're all going to be part of this thing, we've got to do it fairly. And it's kind of
yeah.
a similar thing with this World Health Organization. Like it should encourage people to ask like, oh well, why has he done that? And I think a
Mm,
lot of people just reflexively, because he's Trump and because he's a bit of a moron and there's just so much anger towards him, and yeah, because of that, people are just like, oh, he's being a knobhead, why is he doing that? And just because it's like the name of the organization itself, like the World Health Organization, it's like, oh, this is like, it sounds like a good thing is basically what I'm
yeah.
saying. Like this is just like for the whole world and it's about keeping us all healthy. But when you actually look into how that organization is structured
It's a
and
bit
some of the
dodgy, like most things are. Yeah.
yeah, like the WHO was saying in January, it was saying that it was telling people based on what China was saying that this virus has no human transmission. It's like
Mm,
that's just a massive fuck up,
yeah.
right? What you can't, what you're the
Yeah. They
like,
just messed up.
yeah, that's like a massive fuck up.
Undeniably. Mm. No, I remember. I think David Icke was on about it, and then it was one of those things where he said something just true, and you search it up. It's like, oh wow, that is true. He said, I think the WHO, the head of WHO he's an Ethiopian, and he
Yeah,
like played some part in genocides or just awful things in his own country.
really?
And it's like, yeah,
No,
and
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
you hang on, let me have a look. I'll be the young Jamie for this.
We wouldn't want to be factually inaccurate on this show.
Yeah, I'm just checking. I might have got that wrong.
we've said all kinds of stuff about 5G and flat Earth, but this is the thing that we have to fact check.
Yeah, there we go. His name is Tedros, and he's had some really, yeah, he was like a dictator in Ethiopia. It was something dodgy in Ethiopia anyway. He was like a political head there and did very dodgy things, and now he's the head of the WHO. It's just a strange link that David Icke is just one of the things he said that are just factually based and raises a few eyebrows. It's just, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind.
And that's not to say that we support everything Trump's doing, obviously.
No, yeah.
But some people
just
say
because
that
it's Trump doing it, it doesn't mean it's unfounded. But I mean, there's a good chance it is because the man is quite mad. But
he's insane.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, but you still can't dismiss everything he does because he is the most powerful man in the country, in the world even.
Do you think he's going to be re-elected? Have you been following the election stuff?
Well, have you seen the state of Biden? I mean, Trump is many things, but he's a bloody good speaker. And the stuff I've seen of Biden, although they might be taken out of context, I'm not sure. But the stuff I've seen of Biden, the man can't speak. He doesn't know what he's doing.
I feel bad for him, man. I feel honestly bad for the guy.
I do you have to feel pity because there must be some sort of mental deterioration or something. But it's just mad that hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent to get this man into office, and it's quite visibly clear that he's not fit for the job. And it's strange. And he's going to get destroyed by Trump, I think, in a debate.
I think so. I did see him do one of the last debates he did with Bernie Sanders before he dropped out. He was all right, Biden. He was okay in that debate I saw. But you're right. There's a lot of videos out there where he's just like, he's not only is he not like speaking very concisely, but it's almost like he's struggling to think.
Yeah,
like,
it's not even coherent.
Yeah.
I've seen, sometimes they subtitle. I mean, it's natural for, you're not going to say everything right all the time, but I've seen multiple examples of it, of him just kind of speaking gibberish. So it is slightly worrying.
He did have a bad stutter when he was younger as well, Biden.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There are these factors to take into account, to be fair. Well, but I still think overall that...
Yeah, tear him apart.
Yeah, I think so too.
I wanted Sanders to get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't follow American politics too much, but everything I've heard about Sanders just sounds so much better than all the other candidates, really. Yeah. But
I kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. It's kind of like a similar way I think about Greta Thunberg, right? And bear me out, but like Greta Thunberg, she's like doing a lot of good stuff. She's promoting her like a good cause, like bringing a lot of awareness to like something which awareness needs to be brought to. But I kind of feel, in a sense, like I feel bad for her. Like she's this little girl on stage with the whole world looking at her, all this attention, all these journalists clamping, all these people looking up, all this insane amount of pressure put on this one like child.
16-year-old girl, yeah.
She's 16 and she has like various, not like mental, like what's the right way of putting it? Like not mental health conditions, but like
I think she has ASD, doesn't she?
Stuff like that, yeah. And she has had eating disorders in the past, so she's a very like vulnerable person in a super important position. And it's kind of the same with Biden. He's like this really old guy who's kind of
they're kind of the opposite.
Maybe should just be chilling in his garden in a rocking chair, like enjoying the sun going down.
Yeah.
And he's been forced into this position of standing for the highest office in the world in like a middle of a global pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen in 100 years. And it's like
immense pressure.
I feel bad for the American people for having to watch it all and go through the ordeal. And I feel bad for him because he should just be chilling and sewing or knitting or smoking a pipe or something.
No, I think you're right. And seeing that sometimes he's unfit, it makes you kind of question, well, if he does get into power, I feel like he's not always going to be the one to, make all decisions. And it kind of questions, okay, am I voting for Biden or am I voting for the campaign Biden 2020, which has, thousands of people working for it and doing all sorts for it? It becomes more of a campaign. I mean, I guess he is representative of a party, but I don't know. It's just, there is something odd there. I get what you mean, yeah. Seeing Greta Thunberg and him, there is a similarity between them, and it's unnerving.
It sort of remains to be seen who he picks as his vice president.
That'll
be a very important appointment, because they'll be like based on what I've seen of Biden so far, I imagine that VP will be doing like a lot of the
A lot of the job. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the heavy lifting.
You should get Obama back in. They should have the dream team back. Well,
Some
not a
people
dream
were
team, but
speculating that he was going to put Michelle Obama, which I just think is a bit of lunacy,
I
really.
doubt. Do you really think Michelle Obama, after going 8 years of that, would want to do any more? I bet she just wants to relax with the kids and never want to do politics again. But
Maybe, but these
we're all
people that
different.
go into politics aren't.
That's true. They are a
They're
different
all a
breed.
bit.
I'm not.
They're
Yeah.
yeah, different type of person.
Yeah, I'm not very politically inclined. I don't think I'll be an MP anytime soon, personally.
How did you feel when Boris Johnson fell ill?
Uh, I mean, quite worried because, well, I mean, if the worst case scenario happened and he died while in office, that wouldn't be very good for morale, would it? So I think everyone had that at the back of their minds. I did slightly, but he seems to be through it now, doesn't he? Healthy. So, I mean, hopefully he can get, yeah, if he's fit and get back on the job, really. Um, yeah, I feel like just kind of the criticism towards him at the moment, he's in ridiculously stressful position with the state of the world at the moment, and he's just had a near-death experience by the sounds of it with
Yeah.
his awful COVID-19 thing. I bet what must his mind be at the moment? He almost just died. I think. Is he really gonna want to jump back on the throne and make some crucial decisions again? Must be a lot of stress on that man at the moment.
Has anyone that you know come down with the virus?
No, not that I know. Actually, one friend, I think has it, but I mean nobody I've come in contact with, or like he's just somebody.
A friend of yours has it.
I think so. He's on the other side of the country though. Well, he said he had a friend who got tested for it definitely, and I think he stayed over at her house like in the last week or something before she got tested, and then he had some sort of symptoms. So it looked like he got it, but I don't think he got tested for it. But I don't think I know anybody who's 100% tested and in hospital or anything. I don't know any serious cases now. What about you?
I know lots of like friends of friends of friends.
Mm.
The most direct person I know is actually my ex-girlfriend's grandma who died of it. She
Oh
died of
no,
it.
that's
Yeah,
awful.
about a week ago.
Mm.
She was like a pretty old lady, but it's still like not good, like
Mm.
bad, like really sad.
Yeah, I guess because I haven't had any exposure to anybody dying or suffering badly from it, it hasn't really hit home how serious it is, maybe in my mind, because I haven't really seen directly the effects of it. But if you've got a story like that, then you're probably a lot more worried about it. Um,
The
yeah.
thing about how it's like being shown in the media is like I'm sort of been struggling to calibrate how concerned I should be about it, because some
Mm,
days I'm like, oh my God, what is happening to the world? This
mm,
is just insane. It's gonna infect us all. It's gonna be a global cataclysm. It's like the end. But then
mm,
other days, when you actually look at the statistics, it's something like 50% of the deaths in Italy have been amongst people who were above the national average. Right,
mm,
50% of people of the deaths in this country are believed to have been in care homes. 95% of the deaths are above people above the age of 65. So
mm.
when you start thinking about it like that,
I think when you look at it rationally, yeah, it starts to become a lot less scary than the media is making it out to be. Like I've kept away from the news mostly because I look at BBC every day, obviously check the headlines, but just looking at headlines, I screenshot it once. It's just
yeah,
every single thing, and it's headlines like 2 more deaths. Like I know there's going to be 2 more deaths today. There's been 700 others as well today. I don't need to know about these two particular bus workers, whatever they are. Like although I'm not trying to, what's the right word, deface their legacy or memories. It's just I don't want that to be publicised to the entire nation. These two random people. I don't know. It's strange. Just focus on the positive stories, like that Captain Tom Moore. That was a good
oh,
story,
that
and I'm
was
glad that
awesome.
became viral. Yeah, that was brilliant. I think that raised morale a lot. But
He's
they've,
like he's number one, like number one in the UK in the charts. He's like the
yeah,
oldest guy to ever get the position.
yeah. My mum was saying the song he did realistically was just awful because the poor man he can't sing. He's 99. I haven't heard it myself.
I
Maybe it's
checked it
just my
out.
mother.
When I heard that it was number one in the UK, I was like, right. I
It
didn't.
must be a
First of
banger.
all, I didn't even know there was a song. Like I knew
Yeah,
he did it. I didn't know there was a song.
yeah.
So I went on YouTube, and I don't know how it's number one in the UK, right? Because it's only got 150,000 views
Oh,
on
is it
YouTube.
really?
Yeah,
That's
so
interesting.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that works, and I don't know also who's following the charts. That's the second
Hmm.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
who's following the
What
chart?
because the charts were big back in the 70s and 80s, I think, weren't they? Top of the Pops and all of that. But
Yeah,
then I feel like the charts, how do they even record it anymore?
I
And
don't know.
why does anybody trust it? Well, why is it still a thing? I feel
Yeah,
like yeah, it's just completely outdated. When you just got something more reliable, like YouTube view counts, you can
yeah.
clearly see what's got the most views. But the charts, yeah, that's just an outdated thing, I think, isn't it? Outdated
Someone
part.
needs to do like a deep house remix of it. You
Yeah.
know,
Make it a banger. Give it to
exactly.
Skrillex or something. Get an old
Yeah,
2012 dubstep remix on it.
they'll do something good with that. Yeah, I was telling you, I remember watching a video of Captain Tom
Mm.
finishing the walk, and he had like those troops beside him doing the salute, and like a tear or two might have rolled down my face.
Yeah.
I think I was drinking that night as well, actually, but that was unrelated. I was like, oh my god, this is so like
Yeah, it's a
it's
beautiful,
moving.
very wholesome story. Even when I saw it the first few days of it, when it's like, oh, this old man's raised 500,000, it's like, wow. And now he's raised like 20 million, which is just insane amounts of money. Yeah, I just hope it goes to the right places, really.
It kind of
Um,
made me a little bit annoyed, though. I mentioned this to you as well, though. It kind of made me a little bit annoyed when I'm seeing all these like Tory politicians who are like thanking him and saying, "Oh, you're doing great stuff." When it's like, hang on, you guys are like the reason why he's having to like pull himself from
yeah.
the garden to the other. Like you got like maybe if you got he's having to do this and raise money for the NHS because they don't have the necessary equipment, and they don't. Part of the reason why they don't have the necessary equipment is because you guys spent like close to a decade fucking cutting the thing and underfunding the thing. Even
Mm.
when people were saying like this NHS needs money. In fact, there was like very specific like like research projects that were put in place over the last few years, like specifically looking at viral pandemics,
Mm.
which said
Yeah, definitely.
that we need to prepare for this. We don't have adequate resources in place. And the government was just like, we're not going to address that right now. I was just
Mm.
going to sort of
Yeah, it's just been put
push.
off. Have you heard about something David Icke mentioned? Again, I'm getting into the conspiracies. Have you heard about Event 201?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah.
have you seen how weird that is? Bill
Describe it for
Clinton.
our large
All
audience
right, so the
who
Bill
want to
and
know about
Melinda
this.
Gates Foundation set up this I guess it was like a thought experiment think tank. I guess you'd assume it is. I think it was November, right? It was November last year, so about 2 weeks before the coronavirus happened, and they tracked the theoretical what specifically a coronavirus would do if it was in a pandemic, and then 2 months later, here we are. It's just it's a massive coincidence, if nothing else. Um, yeah, it's just
Bill
very
Gates is
strange.
he's at the center of a lot of these conspiracies. He seems to be like
Yeah.
a main character
Hmm.
in the whole conspiracy
Well,
drama.
yeah. I mean, I just feel like a lot of people have got a big mistrust of billionaires in general. I think that much money. I have a mistrust of money, and I think that much of it will corrupt any human, no matter how good you are, at some point. I just don't think it's healthy to have that much. And to be fair to him, he does give it a lot away. So I've heard. Um, maybe he doesn't. But
Yes, these people have like more wealth than nations. They're like more
it's
power.
strange,
They're
isn't it?
like
Yeah.
incredibly powerful people. I think Jeff Bezos, who's the Amazon guy, he's got like $4 trillion in net
Yeah.
worth, and
How
he set up
ridiculous is
how
that?
but he set up a charity fund for Amazon workers, which he like was encouraging other Amazon workers to contribute to.
That is strange.
So he
I
was
mean, you
setting up a
could just pay them.
yeah, he was setting up a fucking charity fund for his own workers, expecting them to like. It's just like, dude, like, do you know how much money $4 trillion fucking is? Like, it's an
I feel like
insane amount
he
of
does.
wealth.
I feel like after that point, I feel after even a few 100,000, I've no idea what a million looks like. That's a ridiculous number. That's so big. Let alone a billion. Let alone a trillion. What even are these numbers? They're not even real, really. It's like thinking about the universe is infinite. Like, what does that mean? Nobody really knows. Everyone knows that as a fact, but you can't comprehend it. It's just not really possible. And I think it's the same for numbers as big as that. Like, yeah, those $4 trillion, like it's not contributing to his mental well-being more than probably the 4 million were when he had 4 million. So what are those extra money doing other than, you know, just being in his pocket, really?
Yeah. A lot of
But
people have been like describing this virus. I don't know whether you've heard this phrase, but they've been describing it as like the great leveler. They've been talking
mm,
about this virus as though, oh no, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're a man or a woman, if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're black or you're white, it doesn't matter who you are. This thing is just the great leveler. It makes us all equal. But it's like, well, not really. If you're like an underpaid nurse in a hospital who doesn't have like PPE, who has to
mm,
like put in a bin bag because the government's not been funding her hospital properly.
mm.
Like, it's a lot harder being that person than being a bloody like Hollywood actor celebrity in
Yeah.
your like
Oh,
massive
I'm locked
mansion.
down in my mansion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like the
It's
Great Leveler. If anything, this sort of like exacerbates the inequality that
disparity,
we've already
maybe.
known
Yeah.
exists. Yeah.
Mm.
I think some people have been hoping this thing will like pull us together and make us realize like we're all one society. And that's a good thing in a sense, but it also highlights the fact that there's enormous inequalities in our society, and some people, for like reasons that are like largely not fair at all, are insulated from the injury that this thing can do.
Yeah, I think so. I just feel like our society is just there's just so many flaws with it, and the coronavirus is kind of highlighting some of them, and I think it's making people maybe mistrust, yeah, just institutions in general a little bit more at the moment, or a little bit more than they already were. Because just looking at the state of the world, I think the Boris Johnson and like the Trump just elections just show discontent. Really, they show like that people want a change
Yeah.
because yeah, like you vote for Trump. I feel like a lot of people who voted for him don't agree with everything he says, but you vote for him because he's completely different. He's brash. He's loud. He's a personality, and he's just different to then just the boring politicians that we've had that for so long. I think people want a change, and it's although it might not be a change in the right direction, it was, it's a change and it's something different.
Well, I've voted Corbyn in over the last few years in some of the
Mm,
general elections, and I've always said to people like, and some people take this the wrong way, but I've said I vote for Corbyn the same reason you vote for Trump. It's because we don't trust the people in power. We don't think these people are representing our interests, and we want to change. And
mm,
I happen to think some politicians will are better at delivering that change than others. But fundamentally, when you boil it all down, it's the same thing. It's like the same people vote for Sanders as the same people that vote for Trump. Like, there's a desire just to like really change things, and they feel that all the Clintons and Bidens and Blairs and even Boris Johnsons of the world, it's like some people feel that they aren't genuinely representing like the real people,
mm.
like
I think
working people.
you're probably right, and but I feel like the Boris Johnsons and the Trumps, they're more visibly different because Jeremy Corbyn to the average person who doesn't know anything about politics, it just looks like a very boring old man.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, politics is a bit of a popularity contest. You see somebody like Boris Johnson with a vibrant personality, or Trump, and you just think, yeah, that is a very obvious that you can see they're different very obviously just by appearance even. Whereas to see the change that somebody like Jeremy Corbyn would bring, or Sanders, you kind of have to look into their policies, and I feel like a big majority of the population don't, and it's just based on appearances really.
yeah.
So I can see what you mean, but I feel like a lot of people just won't see that the change that Sanders and Corbyn are trying to bring. They just look at the change that Trump and Boris are just visually, and yeah, like that's their whole personality.
People vote for characters as well, don't they?
Yeah,
And
that's
whether
one
whatever
thing.
you think of like Johnson and Trump, like they are charismatic people.
Yeah,
I actually,
exactly.
people call Boris Johnson a fascist, and they say, oh, he's this horrible Tory who hates poor people. But it's like, I actually find the guy pretty affable. I
Mm,
find him like almost relatively likable,
yeah.
just because of the way he presents himself, and because we're all sort of vulnerable to like that kind of showmanship.
Mm. Yeah, he's very openly like Trump. They've got similarities. They're openly eccentric, openly, yeah, as you say, charismatic. And if you had him over for dinner, he'd probably be brilliant because he's very intelligent and yeah, but and that's just very easy to see. Whereas even if he's got the wrong ideas about politics, you vote for the character really. At the end of the day, I think. Yeah.
Have you been doing this NHS clap for the key workers thing?
I haven't really. No.
Have you not
I
heard it
mean,
out your window? Have people been
no, I
doing it?
haven't. I
Have you
do wear
not?
headphones a lot,
Oh,
but
okay.
to be fair, no, I am just in town, and I could walk outside, but I mean, it would just be me clapping by myself. Like,
You don't
I've
know
got a lot
that.
of
There might be a few
appreciation.
people.
Maybe I've got a lot of appreciation for the NHS, but I don't know. I just feel like clapping won't do much. Although I do respect, it's a very lovely gesture. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm a bit of a hypocrite for
I,
saying
I,
I appreciate the NHS but not clapping.
no, I don't think. I think, believe it or not, I think you can support the NHS without clapping.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's
Believe
what I
it
was
or not.
alluding to.
And voting for the right people. I think that's the
Yeah,
thing.
I feel like
No
that
point
does
voting.
more in the long term
Yeah.
than a few claps. But I mean, it's a nice gesture either way, and it does. I think it probably does improve morale. So keep
Yeah, I was
doing it, I
talking.
guess, if you
Well,
want
not
to do it.
talking to, but I heard someone on campus put out a Facebook post or a tweet. I can't remember, but someone on campus was saying, one of the very few people who's left there, I imagine, was saying that they couldn't hear any clapping on campus either, which is kind of a bit sad.
Mm.
Because in my village, like loads of people clap. Like I lean out my window, whenever it's happening, because Mum's like really behind it, and the first few weeks, people were setting off fireworks, although
Oh
that's kind
wow.
of died down now. But even now, people go outside and they like bang pots and pans together and make a
Mm.
right racket. You can hear people like screaming at the other end of the village, like "woo!"
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard any. I mean, I do wear headphones a lot, so it's possible I wouldn't. But yeah, to be fair, Lancaster at the moment, it's a ghost town, man.
Really?
It's a ghost town. There is nobody about because it's a student town, obviously, and most
Yeah.
people have left, and it's just a ghost town. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like people probably do clap, but especially in this student area that I'm in, there's nobody around. It's weird, but
Yeah.
but although there's bloody sirens, that was something that was annoying me today. A quick rant about bloody police sirens in cities because at the moment there's no traffic. Like I'm walking across the road, it's a ghost town, but the
Yeah.
police still or ambulance still feel the need to blast their sirens. Like my window is closed and it's ridiculously loud, and yeah, just turn off the sirens, police and ambulance. If you
What's
need
the
to get
point?
somewhere and there's somebody in the way, fair enough. But there is nobody on the roads. Like it's literally just empty roads.
Are you sure it wasn't Thursday at 8 o'clock and that was actually the cap?
Maybe that was a
You're just being
bloody
a
racket. Stop.
grumpy old person.
No, it was in the morning, to be fair. uh, very good.
Right, Owen, we've been going for about an hour.
Have we
Uh,
really? Wow,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
time is flying.
I know. Just to
Um,
sort of like wrap this thing up a little bit. What do you think? I kind of asked you this earlier, but like once things do settle down, hopefully once we are back at uni in October and starting our next year, do you think things will change in the way we interact with each other? Do you think maybe there'll be less handshaking? Do you think we'll be sort of more like fearful of each other? Because I remember I've been going for a few walks in this village and a few runs, and every time I run down the road, if there's someone like on the same side of the road as me, either I'll run over to the other side or they'll walk over to the other side.
hmm.
And I understand why everyone's doing it, and it's a good thing, we're all trying to keep each other safe. But like every time it happens, it makes me like really sad because it's like we're forcing this distance upon ourselves, and it's like we're starting to see other people as like, oh no, get away from me, go away, I don't want to be anywhere near you. And I get that it's been done for a good reason, but it's like I'm scared that we're putting too much distance between each other, like that
Hmm.
this distance is going to be really hard to overcome once it is safe to be close with one another again.
Yeah, I feel like I know what you mean about, you kind of do cross the road if somebody else is coming, even, a lot at the moment. But I feel like uh, that should be done out of love for this random human or something passed by. But I feel like it's very easy to just keep doing that, get into a habit of doing it, and then kind of fall into the trap of thinking you hate them because that's why you're crossing the road. When in matter of fact, you're doing it really because it's like a act of caring, I think. I think. I think after this is over, there will definitely be a change, but I think for the better as well. But I worry about if it will last. And I worry that we will just fall into our old habits, and everything will just be we'll have the same problems, if not worse, than what they used to be. But I feel like the first few months after it will be a lot of gratitude and appreciation for everything. But I just hope I hope in vain that carries on and continues. But I feel like we just get used to our circumstances again, as we do with creatures of habit.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope we do. I kind of want things to go back to normal in a sense, but like I also accept that there's like things about our society and things about our world which are really fucked up. And I hope this
Mm.
is an opportunity. Like I hope we learn the right lessons from this thing. I hope we learn,
Yeah,
and that we don't just descend into this police state of surveillance where we're all scared of each other. We're scared to touch one another.
mm.
We, I hope we actually learn the right things.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think um, I was reading today about the Swedish response, which is
Mm.
just completely different to everyone else's because they haven't done lockdown, and it doesn't look like they're doing too badly. To be fair, considering they haven't done lockdown, their numbers aren't bad at all by the
Yeah.
looks of it. But again, the numbers are completely unreliable at the moment. Um, and although I do feel like only a country like Sweden can really do that because I feel like they've just got more trust and love for each other than we might really, just because. I mean, every time you hear about those Nordic countries and Scandinavian countries, they're always perfect, aren't they? They're always top of every bloody table, like wellness and just happiness and everything. They're always top of every table. We should just take a country like Sweden or all those happy Norways and Finlands or whatever. Just see what they're doing because they do a lot of things differently, and they'll just seem to be happy people. Just copy them. They're clearly doing something right.
You
um,
only ever hear good stuff about them in the news,
I know
don't
you don't hear bad things about Sweden, do you? Like,
you?
or any of the Scandinavian countries. They just always sound brilliant.
Mm.
Just look at what they're doing, copy them.
Plus,
That's
if
what I
at
think.
the end of this, if Sweden does have like a relatively low death count, it, we should like because of
Yeah,
that
you
we
should
should look
really
at our
look at
government and be
that.
like, well, hang
How
on,
the hell have you done that?
yeah, why
We're
did it
locked
work?
down and we've got
Yeah.
more deaths and worse cases than you, and you're
Mm.
still free to roam about because they've kind of just done the social distancing. Obviously, it's been recommended, but they've done it, out of love for each other or something, rather than out of being forced to. Which I feel like when you're forced to by the government, you people who mistrust the government anyway will just hate that they're doing this, and they'll start to hate the other people they're doing it for. But
And
we
if
will see.
if Sweden does come out of this with a relatively low death count, it'll sort of make us think, oh, hang on, maybe we did go too far. Maybe we should have been like a little more surgical in our approach and just said to like, maybe we should have just said like, oh, if you're over 50 years old or over 60 years old, you just stay at home, rather than like closing it down for everyone.
Mm.
It might make us think, but the government's gonna like at the end of this, they'll be able to say they were right no matter what because they'll either have a really high
Yeah,
death count if they have a really high death count, they'll just say, oh, it would have been much
would
higher
have been
if we hadn't
high.
done
Yeah,
anything. And if they have a really low death count, they'll be able to say, oh, we had a really low death count because of the
that's true.
policies we
Yeah, they
enacted.
can twist it anyway, can't they?
Like
That's
this,
interesting.
this massive NHS Nightingale hospital which they've opened up in London.
Yeah,
See it, like thousands of beds in there. I think it's got like a 4,000 bed
it's
capacity.
in a stadium. Is that the one in the stadium?
It's in the XL Centre, which is like a conference centre,
Oh,
like
yeah,
like
okay,
massive warehouse,
exhibition
and they've
centre.
got like 4,000 beds, and they've only treated 41 patients since the place opened. Yeah,
Yeah, 41.
yeah, out
That's
of that capacity of 4,000,
wow.
and
That's scary.
some like I think Matt Hancock, the health secretary, was saying the other day that we've already or we're very soon approaching the peak of this thing. So it
Mm.
makes you think like, oh, hang on, maybe we did like maybe things did go a little bit. We did sort of descend into a state of kind of hysteria, which is very easy to do. I mean, my mum's she watches BBC News like 24/7. She's
Oh God.
always got it on, and it's just like it's just fear, fear, fear.
Mm.
It's just constant. It's really bad for like your state of mind. It puts you
Yeah,
just in
I
a
think
constant
so.
state
It's
of
just
panic.
bad for your mental well-being. You just feel depressed after watching it. You can't
Yeah.
watch the news all the time, I don't think.
And it's the
But
same information over and over again,
yeah, it
especially the
feels.
BBC. It's
Yeah,
just
it's just
like,
more deaths.
yeah,
Because
over and over again.
yeah, like the odd good story, like the Captain Moore story, okay, but that was a very rare story in just a mass of just death and destruction that you just get all the time. It's ridiculous. But such is the way of the media. Negative feelings sell, I think.
Have
That
you been
just
watching
seems.
any? Have you been watching any like movies or video games to get through this sort of TV series
Um,
or books? Books, they're a thing.
Books. Oh, what are they? Actually, the other day I realised I've had a Kindle because it's my mum's old one, so I did actually start reading. Although I haven't really got back to that much. I also bought a guitar, which I'm meant to start learning, but again, I've been so lazy, I haven't even got round to bloody
Just get a
learning it.
guitar out. Have you got it there?
I do have it up there. Yep. Oh,
Is it an acoustic?
it is an acoustic. I got it for 15 quid on Spock, so it's nothing
Really?
special. Yeah, that's why I bought it. 'Cause I was like, why not? Although I
Wow.
did get out my flute again because I used to play that a long time ago, so I've been playing a bit on that as well. And
If you
yeah,
can
so
play both at the same time, that'll just be amazing.
yeah, I've heard that before. I'll try my best. But yeah, to get through the time, I've got I haven't really got into a TV series much. I've been trying to get into some, but I haven't really been that invested into them. I've been watching a lot of like really professionally made videos on YouTube, really, just because they're equally as entertaining. So there's this one guy, or a few guys actually, I've been watching that do urban exploration. So they kind of just explore abandoned buildings. And this guy he did a documentary of him going illegally to Chernobyl. So he camped there, walking,
Wow.
evading security, filmed everything. It's like 2 hours long, and like a 4-day trip to Chernobyl and back, and amazing scenery, amazing pictures.
Yeah.
He's a climber as well. So this guy climbed on top of the bloody Ferris wheel in Chernobyl,
Wow.
whilst there's security and tourists everywhere. Like the man. He's got balls of steel. I've never seen. Maybe it's bravado, maybe it's stupidity, but it's very entertaining anyway. So I've been watching videos like that, watching your
Urban
podcasts.
explorers, are they like the kind of people who climb to the top of skyscrapers, or is that something slightly different?
Some of them are. This guy he's an urban explorer, but he is a climber as well. So he always climbs to the top, gets the scenic views for his camera, but it's like, oh, stop, just get down, get down. But then there's another set I watch where they're just very safe. They just go into abandoned buildings and do nothing but just walk around and film it. And I just find it's it's like a morbid fascination because
Yeah.
seeing abandoned buildings, I don't know, it's a very strange emotion, but it's quite yeah,
I
I
know
don't
what
know,
you
I quite
mean. It's
enjoy
like
it.
I enjoy it as well. I just
Mm,
like looking at pictures of like abandoned places,
yeah.
especially Chernobyl. Chernobyl's kind of like for
Oh yeah, that's like the
weirdos like
grail of
us.
the
It's like yeah, it's like a
it's
holy
brilliant.
site almost.
Yeah, I'd
Did you watch
recommend
the
that video.
Did you watch the TV series?
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
That was
That
it
was
was
one of the
awesome,
best
wasn't
TV
it?
shows I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah.
What a show.
I
And it
remember.
really like conveyed in like layman's terms very easily, like just how considering how complex of a situation it is. They explained it incredibly well, and you could kind of understand how well the Ukrainians and Russians did to contain that as well as they did. Well, it's still a problem, but when you hear about what a catastrophe it could have been, it's like wow, they pulled it off. To be fair, and they
Yeah.
did contain it.
That fucking scene in it though, where it shows the like the firefighters, what happens, like their gradual sort of deterioration in
Oh yeah,
hospital, and
horrific.
there's that nasty, nasty scene like right towards the end where the guy's like, not to get too graphic, but he's like pretty messed up.
Like all his
Like,
skin's off, and you feel yeah.
yeah, yeah,
One
the
of my
guy's like
favorite
falling.
scenes in that show was when they went to go under into the water to turn off the valves in the dark with the Geiger counters. That was incredibly done. In fact, I watched a YouTube essay on Chernobyl and artistically how they use perspective, like also in terms of camera like footage, but also in terms of just the way they focus on like individual stories of the wife and the main guy Lugasov. But yeah, very
I
good show
think those
indeed.
guys survived. I think the guys who went over
Yeah,
survived.
I've heard the real wife of that fireman actually kind of got angry that they used her story without permission or something. I don't know, but I mean it's a brilliant show, yeah, and yeah,
I'd love
very
to
fa
go as well. I'd love to
Oh
go to
yeah,
Chile.
I'd love
It
to.
would be
It's
awesome.
probably my number one place to go, to be honest, because you can go as a tourist, and yeah, that's probably my number. Although the way this guy did it, they're called stalkers. When you do it illegally, it's called you become a stalker. That's the name for it. And when you see them, camping and surviving, evading security, it's just cool. And then
Yeah.
climbing to the top of Chernobyl, and then not Chernobyl, the Ferris wheels and stuff. It's just really cool. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
I watched a video pretty recently, and it was this guy, and he was like, he was kind of doing what you were describing, like going into abandoned buildings, but his thing was going into them at night.
Oh,
and
right.
like the scariest places you could imagine, like
Right,
abandoned
yeah.
mental ward at night, and just like
Mm.
walking around and these people are fucking lunatics. Like, there's no way I'd go walking around like a haunted mental asylum. Well, not
Mm.
necessarily haunted, but like an abandoned mental asylum at night.
Yeah,
Do
I
you think
think
these
I'd have to do
places?
it in a day.
Do you think there might be something to these? Do you think there might be like some kind of spirits or beings or ghosts and ghoulies like hanging about these places, or do you
Funnily
think
enough,
that's all just
today
nonsense?
today I watched a documentary on YouTube. Apparently it was originally on Channel 5, and it's all about the ghosts in the underground. And it's a pretty good documentary because they got a guy who's like investigating it, and the common theory at the moment is that it's infrasound that we can't hear makes us kind of go
Infrasound.
funny. Yeah,
Well,
so
infrasound.
sound below 20 hertz. That's pitch. So the lower than we can register, than we can actually hear. Although we can't hear it, we're pretty sure that it kind of, makes us funny. It makes us uneasy. And then
Oh,
also that can maybe lead to visual distortions. So that they
oh,
they debunked some of these ghost stories from these old underground workers, London underground workers, with infrasound, with a microphone saying, "Yeah, there's loads of infrasound here that might have contributed to it." Well, then there's one. Oh my God, it's freaky. I'll send it to you later. But this woman just sitting on the train and taking a picture of her family, whatever, um, and yeah, and so she got it. This was in the 80s on a like crappy disposable camera. She's some random woman, and then she gets it developed a few months later. And oh my, I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about the picture. It's scarred my mind. So there's pictures of these family sitting on the train, the windows behind them, and in the window you can see the torso and hands of a man in an electric
oh
chair, and
no.
with electricity coming out, and it looks so fake. And they got so many experts to say, well, this is a random woman, and you couldn't have faked things back in the 80s. This photo's ages old. And then they realised in Madame Tussauds, there's this famous execution electric chair case of this guy who got a miscarriage of justice and got executed. And the photo she took with this distortion in is identical to a Madame Tussauds waxwork of a guy in an electric chair, like identical. I'll
What?
send it to you later. I couldn't believe it either, but I'm glad I watched it in the bloody day because I was freaked out. I was freaked out. Even just thinking about it now, God, I'm getting goosebumps. It was creepy. But
Do you think there's anything to it?
again, I feel like with so much uh, like conspiracy around it, maybe it isn't so unfounded as people think.
Yeah.
Maybe there isn't smoke that. Well, maybe there is. What am I trying to say? Isn't smoke without fire again? There must be. I feel like a lot of it can be explained, but there are some things that are unexplainable, and it's weird. It's very strange.
There's
And
definitely like a shit ton of nonsense out there. But it's
mm,
with
that's,
all these conspiracy theories and ghost videos and even like UFOs and aliens and stuff like that. Like even there's so much of it. And Bigfoot, that's another one. Atlantis,
mm,
all this nonsense.
yeah,
Like if 99.99999% of it's false, if just fucking like a fraction of
yeah.
it
That's
is
all it
right, that's
takes.
all it
Yeah.
takes. Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah, literally. And that's the problem. 99% of it does look crap and it's just clearly false. And I just wish people wouldn't try and make it up. I guess people try and do it for attention or whatever. But it's just quite annoying because it has diluted the pool of conspiracies immensely because people just keep making them up. And it's quite
Yeah.
annoying. I don't want to sift through these ridiculous stories when there might be grains of truth somewhere to be found.
And people just dismiss it out of hand because they don't want their like reality to be shaken.
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
like,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's definitely.
that kind of speaks like a little bit to this virus to some extent.
Mm.
Like I remember right at the start of this thing, I was like, I was pretty scared like very early on,
Yeah, I
and I
remember.
was, and I was like the fucking crazy guy in class, like
Yeah.
telling people
Who is
like
this? What's he on about? Shut up.
how infectious
Coronavirus.
this
What
thing
is
is.
this? Shut
And
up.
people were like telling me, oh, it's just going to be the next Ebola, like telling me to calm down. I remember speaking to a fucking medical student, right, at Lancaster and telling her that this thing lives on surfaces and I'm really concerned. And she just looks at me and laughs and goes, huh, it doesn't live on surfaces. And it's like,
It
now
does.
it's brought the world to a grinding halt, but whatever. I'm not one of those I told you so people, honestly.
Yeah,
But I do feel somewhat vindicated.
yeah, that's fair enough.
But yeah, about this whole like ghost thing, like I'm kind of like you. Like we don't know a lot about the world, right? And
Mm.
there's definitely a lot of craziness out there and a lot of weirdness and a lot of ghost stories is probably just people hallucinating and seeing things out of the corner of their
Mm.
eye, or maybe they've, I don't know, drank a little bit too much or smoked a little bit too much or something. But
Yeah.
we don't know how consciousness works,
Mm.
and there's something like it just kind of makes sense on like a really deep human intuitive level. Like, oh yeah, like
Yeah, there is
of
something that
course
it
there's a
makes
spirit here.
sense.
There's like a being here, a presence here. Like you can kind of as much as
Mm.
people sort of like say, oh, energies and vibes and that's all nonsense. Like you do feel it. You do sometimes walk in a room and get a good feeling or a bad feeling, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah, there's, as you say, there's like we know nothing about what we are or what the universe is really,
Yeah.
and people still seem to have like if you bring something up that challenges our view of reality, they still dismiss it because I guess maybe it's fear or just being a creature of habit. They just they don't want anything new. But yeah,
Have you ever seen anything yourself?
no, I haven't. Why have you? Got
I,
any ghost stories?
not myself. I'm trying to reflect back on my life and think. I've heard. I remember once when I was a kid. I don't know if this is quite a ghost story or just me being kind of tripping out a little bit. But I
Mm.
was playing upstairs and I heard my mum shout me down. She shouted my name, and I ran downstairs and said, "Oh, what is it, mum?" She was like, "Oh no, I didn't shout. I didn't shout your name at all." But and I'd heard it with such clarity, and I was so confident I hadn't imagined it. And I
Mm.
remember being immediately like freaked out. And to this day, I still remember that because I'm certain I heard her voice, but she didn't say anything.
I think it's possible. I think we're quite fallible creatures. Like, it's very possible you heard one, but just doesn't mean it happened. Like you could have just heard it in your head. Doesn't mean you're going crazy. But I feel like it's entirely possible that we just have glitches. I think we have glitches all the time. You have random pains in your body, or like just your arm just hurts like manically for a second, and you're like, oh, what the hell was that? It could be the same. You just hear a voice. I think actually, now you mention it, as a child, I feel like I do remember hearing my name called a lot, but then, well, like, especially in a crowd, I'd often hear my name heard like called in a crowd, but then like nobody was calling for me. Or maybe there's a lot of Owens, but I don't think there are. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is. I feel like it is natural for humans to think there is a higher power, and I think that's always been natural. I mean, look at religion. That's just that seems to be the manifestation of humans, believing in a higher power. Whether you believe in religion or not, it shows that humans, and we've always thought of gods and things, and it seems only recently, in the last 100 years, 50 years even, that religion's kind of really been beat down, and just the whole idea of woo stuff and things we don't know because we've learnt a lot. We seem to think there isn't much else to learn, but I feel like there is an awful lot left to learn. And yeah, we shouldn't turn away at these like new opportunities to learn more, really, just because we've learned X amount already.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually writing my last politics essay, which I submitted a few weeks ago. It
Mm.
was on like that topic of religion. We were asked to sort of like look at whether we are living in a religious world and sort of like explore to what extent religion like plays an important part in our lives. And I sort of had this view, I think like a lot of people, that religion was on the decline. Like as time goes on and as like cultures develop, belief in God and religion and the supernatural sort of declines. But when I was doing the research for this paper, it actually turns out that religion's growing in the world and
Really? That's interesting.
secularism and atheism is going down. So, like, if you look at the percentage of religious people in the world today and the percentage of atheists and secularists in the world today, in 2050, this was the polling I was looking at. There was a massive polling group. Have you heard of Pew polling? It's
No.
like this huge international polling organization, and
Right.
they're saying that by 2050, the amount of atheists in the world is going to have decreased, and the amount of religious people is going to have increased. And specifically, like the growth comes from Islam and Christianity. And so, at the moment, is people like Christians and Muslims represent 55% of the global population. In 2050, they're going to represent 70%.
Wow.
So seven in 2050, 7 out of 10 people born on this planet will be Christians or Muslims. which is
Yeah,
insane.
that
You'd
is
think it
very
would be the
interesting.
opposite.
Yeah, you would actually. Maybe it's because, well, science seems to, the more we learn about science, the more it seems like we're just kind of in this infinite universe and like there's no hope, there's no higher power. It's quite depressing, really. There's no point to existence. So maybe people, after hearing that, turn to religion because they want to believe in something higher. Because like the few times I've been to church, I'm not religious myself, but when I have been to church, I think it's brilliant. Like you sing with people. I remember coming out of church, I feel amazing. Like I just told people
Yeah.
because yeah, because I just told, I don't believe it at all, but I just told people I love them, even though they're just complete strangers. I'm singing with complete strangers. It's just a very communal thing, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But I think there is beauty in religion of that like togetherness, but it gets contorted and twisted, and too much faith is put into these old scriptures, which aren't meant to be taken literally anyway. And plus, how many languages have they been through, and how many interpretations are there? Like, there's probably just one guy writing some brilliant stories, I mean, very intelligent guy. But I mean, 2,000 years on, we're still looking at the same guy's writing or whatever. Um,
Like
so I
even
feel
he
like
would be
there's
like,
room
"What are you
for,
doing? Like it's
yeah,
2,000
like
years later. You
I
didn't amend
remember.
this thing."
Yeah, it's a bit like the American Constitution, really. It's been 300 years, still haven't bloody changed it. Haven't they written any more? I think Joe Rogan had a bit on that. But I think, yeah,
Well,
there's
he says they wrote that thing with fucking feathers.
a fantastic point. Oh dear, that is so funny. But yeah, I think the essence of religion is beautiful, and believing in a higher power is probably beneficial, and the whole like exercise of coming together as one and singing or whatever, that's just beneficial as well. But yeah, when you look at what are they called in America, what are those nutty church gang called that Louis Theroux kept interviewing and Joe
Oh,
Rogan?
the Baptist Summit, Westboro
Yeah,
Baptist.
Westboro, that's it. Yeah, like they're like the extreme where they took everything literally and really analyze the Bible and derive all these awful conclusions from it. When just don't take it so literally. Just take it as what it is, enjoy it, appreciate it, believe in as much as you want to, but don't force it on other people. I don't think.
Louis
Uh,
Theroux did those. They're all on Netflix now, aren't they? All those Louis Theroux stuff are awesome. I think he's
yeah.
been multiple times. He's been more
mm,
than once,
Yeah,
definitely.
I was on a plane actually because there was only one of them, and I think it's the only Louis Theroux I've ever seen actually. I need to watch more of him. But I watched the last one, I
He's
believe.
awesome.
Yeah, and then I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with the girl who left the Westboro Baptist Church and who like really renounces them now, which is fascinating because the U-turn that she's gone through from calling, well, saying awful things at like the funerals of gay soldiers or whatever, and then to now like renouncing and hating well, not hating her family, but denouncing what she did. It's just in the space of like a few months or years, her beliefs are just woof like that, and it's that's an interesting story in of itself, really. But
The
yeah,
challenge for like I think for religion, because I think you're right. Like, there's a lot of valuable stuff in religion,
mm,
just in terms of gathering in a
yeah,
community and being
exactly.
with people. And like both my grandparents are pretty devout Catholics. Like, they go to church
Mm.
weekly, although not recently. They've been doing it online, or trying to do it online, I should say. um, and I think it's really good for them. Like, it gives them like it holds their life together in a sense and gives them like direction. And especially as you get older and you start to approach like the end of this particular existence on Earth, like having that like faith and belief and trust in the fact that there's something more, there's something
Mm.
higher, like, it's
I think
really
that's beautiful.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful as well. But there's also all that ugliness that comes with it, like in the West, the homophobia and the sexism at some extent. And
Mm.
if you're looking at something like really extreme interpretations of certain religions, like stonings and beheadings, and in some faiths, like just leaving the religion is punishable by death.
Mm.
So it's like,
That's an
how
interesting.
how do we? It's a question of like, can we have all the good stuff that religion brings, but get rid of all the ancient, archaic bullshit?
Mm. Yeah, well, I've been, as you know, I'm a bit of a Russell Brand fan, so I like his kind of take on spirituality, where he does it for himself. He kind of he believes in a higher power, but it doesn't have to be, a man in the sky who made everything. Um, and yeah, he does it, for himself. I I feel like it's healthy to maybe have a belief in something like that. Even if it's your own personal thing and you never divulge it to anybody else, I feel like it could potentially, yeah, just help well-being really. Um,
Russell Brand, I really like Russell Brand as well, and
mm,
he comes from like, it's kind of like a new agey. He's like, oh, we're all connected, we're all one. He's not into like one specific religion, and
yeah.
some people criticize him and people like him because they just say, oh, you're just picking and choosing what you like. You just pick. It's like pick and mix, like a sweet shop.
Oh yeah, that's
My
interesting. I haven't heard
response
that
is like,
viewpoint.
well, people criticize it, but my attitude is like, well, why the hell not? Why the hell not? Why can't
Yeah,
we just choose? We're living in this like super connected information society. We've got access to all of these texts. What you'd be sort of silly to just like restrict yourself to one. Why not
yeah,
look at what resonates with you, and then extract that and put because especially a lot of these religions, they've all got like similar teachings. There's
mm,
definitely differences, but there's certainly similarities when it comes to treat the golden rule, like treat others as you want to be treated, don't kill people, be
yeah,
kind,
exactly.
basic shit
There's
like that.
there are vital rules probably in, I imagine every religion teaches them, which should be taught, and it's just, for example, these rules are taught in stories in the Bible. I think I've still yet to read the Bible. I need to do that at some point, but they're taught in these ways, in these fantastic ways, but then people take these stories, so literally and just believe in them wholeheartedly when it's like a moral of a story. The stories are there to get the morals out of them. That's what stories are about, in
You,
those contexts. So, yeah,
have you heard of Jordan Peterson?
I have indeed. I was watching some of him about an hour ago, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's like
Yeah,
super controversial these days.
yeah, for some
Super
reason.
controversial, but he did for some reason. But I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and he does this one YouTube series. Did it a couple of years ago actually, where he sort of deconstructs the biblical stories of the Old Testament, and he does
Oh,
like a
that's
sort of mythological, psychological. They're really fascinating. He does this breakdown of the story of Genesis, Noah, Cain and Abel, and he like
mm,
breaks it down and says what this means psychologically. And to me, that's part of a process of what needs to happen. We need to look at these
yeah,
stories as kind of like myths, as almost like as poems, and sort of
mm,
think like, what are these things trying to represent, and then extract the moral, extract the message, and then make it relevant to like the people of today.
yeah. Just make it even more just digestible, even.
Because he was saying that the story of Genesis, for example, the story of Adam and Eve and the serpent and the Garden of Eden, that story is thousands of years old. We don't even know where that story came from
Mm,
originally because it belonged to the various tribes of the Middle East, like the that part of the world. Um, and as slowly the tribes converged and one tribe became like joined with another, and that community of people, of religious people, grew, then that story was sort of spread down the generations, and that story has existed for thousands of years, and it's been told from one generation to the next, like since like for thousands of years.
yeah,
And there's a reason that story has survived. It's
yeah. I bet
survived
there
because it
is.
speaks to something deep in us,
Mm,
and we shouldn't just dismiss it because it's just this dusty old book from another age. It's like, no, there's a reason it's survived. It's because it's
yeah.
relevant to us as humans, and fundamentally we are, lots changed in the world, our society is completely different, but we are human in the same way that humans were 10,000 years ago, and
Hmm.
their struggles and their challenges are kind of relevant to our struggles and challenges today. We're all human and we all suffer in the same way, and we all experience love in the same way, and so we shouldn't just reject this part of the human story.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, there's like the two extremes where you take it too literally and go mad on it, or you just completely reject it because you see all the bloodshed, or whatever that religion has done. But again, yeah, again, it should be a healthy medium. You should get the morals from the story or whatever, and yeah, and just build on that as a person. And as you say, there must be something to these stories if we've had them for thousands of years. Like they're probably quite good stories, and you should probably
Have
listen to them if we've had them for
you
so
ever
long.
tried? You ever tried meditation?
Um, yes, maybe yes, but I haven't really gone too deep into it. Like sometimes, um, I find it quite valuable to clear the mind and stuff. But as everybody says, I should do it way more than I do. What about you?
A little bit. I've done on and off. Before I came to Lancaster, I did a little bit of traveling and volunteering, and I spent some time at like meditation retreats. But
Mm,
even having done that, I've still never got into it. I've still struggled to sort of keep it as a daily habit. Some people
yeah,
say you should be doing it for 20 minutes every day, and I've really struggled to do that for any longer than a few weeks.
yeah.
But I definitely see the value in it. There is we won't be able to go for a while, but there is like a little meditation club at Lancaster,
Oh, is there actually? That'd be kind of fun.
Right, yeah, this. Yeah, it's on every Friday. It was on a Thursday or something. I'll tell you
Oh
about it
wow.
next year if you want to
Yeah.
come. But a few people would just go down to the chapel in the uni, and we sort of sit in a little circle. And there's normally about like 30 of us.
Oh,
Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 40, but about that.
that sounds
And
pretty nice actually.
there's a woman, a lady who works there, and she'll sort of give a guided meditation. But I'm sort of surprised that there wasn't many students there. There was like a lot of like more senior members of staff,
Mm.
um, like I'm guessing like lecturers and people who work for the uni. But there's only ever a handful of students there. I thought like meditation was more popular with people our age. I thought it was like becoming quite a mainstream thing.
I think
But
it's
apparently,
becoming more popular, but it's still hard to tell, somebody young like me or whatever, even younger, just, stop and do nothing for 10 minutes because it's very, especially if you haven't done it before, it's like most of the time when you're not doing anything for 10 minutes, you're bored as hell. So when you tell somebody to, just don't do anything for 10 minutes, they're like, why? I could just scroll on my Instagram or whatever people use today. It's just those short-term gains again win out against the meditation. I think just those addictive behaviors like social media or whatever. There's too much entertainment these days.
all our attention spans are messed up.
Indeed.
Done like
Yeah.
studies on this, like showing how our attention, like as the generations go on, like as time passes, young people their attention spans are like increasingly shrinking.
Mm. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
this
I definitely
technology,
think so.
it's like it's messing with the structure of our minds and the way we think about things.
Mm.
Like I was
I mean,
hearing this thing about in the past people would just when people were learning new information and new knowledge, they'd have to remember the information and the knowledge.
mm.
But now we don't remember information; we remember where to access it.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Actually, I know I've heard that before of an anecdote where people who used to, read a lot of maps and got good at map reading and used that to navigate, as everybody did for thousands of years. And then in the last few years, they've just used the phone or whatever, and then they've gone back to map reading after 20 years of reading maps really well, and they can hardly do it. As you said, it's they remember how to get the information, and now that information is just from the phone, so they do that instead. Yeah, we've just kind of abolished boredom in the last
Yeah.
10 years. It's very strange, and it's not that healthy, I don't think.
Have
Or
we
at least
abolished
we,
it though? Because just because you're scrolling through your phone doesn't mean you're not bored. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
but
I'm bored to death during this lockdown. I've got to
yeah,
admit, I'm bored to death. I've got all of the information in the world at my disposal, as much entertainment as I want, all the video games, all the books, but I am bored to death.
yeah.
So have we abolished it?
Well, I think it speaks to, if we've got all this bloody entertainment and we're still bored, then maybe we should kind of divert our efforts to, doing something else because clearly this doesn't work. I feel like that boredom at the moment kind of comes from not having maybe worth or something. I sound like Jordan Peterson now. He's always on about worth and stuff. But yeah, it's technology's strange, very strange.
Yeah, I have some days where I'm just like I almost want to destroy my phone or just like lock it in a
Mm,
box and I'll be the end of the day and the sun will be going down or whatever. I'll be going to bed and I'll just be like I've been on this thing. Like it was the first thing I touched in the morning. It's the last thing I touch before
yeah.
I go to bed. I almost feel like a slave to it, and I just want to
Mm,
take a hammer to it and be like, I
be
almost want to
free.
live in a world before all this, like
Yeah,
before all
I
these
find
screens.
I find that very appealing as well. There's some sort of romantic idea I have about the world before technology. But then I feel like it's very easy to get in just to see the bad things technology. But when in reality it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
The basis of it is amazing. Every human who has a phone has got the combined knowledge of all of humanity instead of his own experiences or his or hers own experiences. It's just insane. But yeah, we've just gone too far with it. Like okay, we've done that. The internet is brilliant, but then we don't need to keep making a faster phone each year. Like we've made a phone and it's brilliant. Like there's nothing wrong with the iPhone like set. What was it? What are we on now? What even
I don't
iPhone
even
are we on
know. I
then?
don't even know
Yeah,
what we're on.
exactly. Whatever the latest one is, it's probably not that much better than the iPhone 7 or whatever. Like just divert your efforts to something else. Just keep. We did something brilliant, 10 years ago. Steve Jobs did something brilliant, but they keep bloody doing what he did. Like he's already done it. Move on to something else. I feel like sometimes.
It's also
Um,
like all this technology, it's been like invented when all these Facebooks and Microsofts and Googles and YouTubes, they're not developing technology for our benefit. They're developing technology to further their profits. So
mm,
all this innovation that's happening, it's not happening for our benefit. It's happening for the benefits of these powerful people.
yeah,
Like,
and it
because
comes at the cost of destruction of the environment as well, which is just something everyone ignores. Um, just all this meaningless progress being made whilst and like the cost is the environment. It's strange, very strange.
yeah, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Like
Mm. Yeah,
people are
where
spending.
are we going? Like, what iPhone do we need to get to before we're satisfied?
It doesn't stop, man. It doesn't stop. The next
The
thing's
iPhone
virtual reality.
10,000.
The next thing's virtual reality, without a
Yeah, that
doubt.
what's that thing Musk is doing? Neuralink, whatever it is, the AI interface. That's
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing that goes straight into your brain.
yeah, that's a bit spooky, but I feel like that is inevitably going to become the future, really. And I don't know.
Yeah.
When I think about technology in the future, I get scared and not just stop thinking about it because it's overwhelming. It's very
It freaks
overwhelming.
me out because it's just like,
Mm,
where the hell are we going? Like, what's happening?
exactly.
It's like the change is just accelerating because we know. Look at how the world is today compared to 20 years ago. Like,
Mm,
I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was the 15th birthday of the very first video on YouTube.
wow,
And like 15 years from the first video to what YouTube is today, it's just like this
that's insane.
insane explosion. It's not YouTube's not even 20 years old, and it's just
Yeah.
dominating the world.
Sometimes it surprises me when I realize that I am actually older than YouTube because like when you see how big YouTube is, it just feels like this eternal, monolith of yeah, and yeah, I don't know, it's just exploded. And whilst our scientific research of what it actually does to us and if it's healthy and the consequences of what we're doing, it's just lagging behind inevitably because it's just exponential success and innovation. But again, like to what? To
Yeah,
where?
exactly. To what
Where are we
end?
going?
To
Yeah,
what end?
exactly. Just this money, just
It kind of
money.
feels like, to me, I kind of see technological evolution as sort of commensurate to biological evolution, in the
Mm,
same way that sort of biology just keeps evolving and evolving, and single-celled organisms turned into multi-celled organisms, and they turned into
yeah.
fish, and they turned into monkeys or whatever the fucking history of
Might be a
life
few
is.
steps in between
Yeah,
fish and
I
monkeys.
might have missed a bit out, but that's like a grand
Yeah, I get you.
overview of millions of years of history. And in the same way, it's kind of like that with technology. Like you start with a small computer, and then you get a big computer, and then you get a planet-sized computer. It's kind of like the same process at work. And in the same way that like biological evolution doesn't give a damn about us, like it doesn't. Like evolution is kind of about the constant destruction and creation of different life forms. And
Yeah,
when when one expression of life is no longer appropriate for its environment, it'll be replaced by by
yeah, the thing that eats it.
an by an improved version of
Or the
itself
yeah, the
almost.
yeah.
Like it'll be replaced by something that's better. Like
Mm,
as its children will continually become like increasingly adapted to its environment, and then it'll change, and then that thing that was once a fish will become a fucking human. And it's
mm,
kind of like the same forces at play now, and it's fundamental. It's built into the very structure of life and the universe, but it doesn't give a damn about us.
mm.
And maybe we are sort of destined to become history, and maybe we will be replaced by the robots. And I'm sort of torn between, is that a good thing because it's the future and it's destiny and you can't fight it? But
Mm.
as a human, as like a human being who cares about other
Yeah,
human beings, it's like, no, screw that. I don't give a fucking damn about that. Like I want to preserve what we are now.
yeah, indeed, I agree. And it's just the scary thing is how fast the technological, progression is compared to biological. It's just so fast. And another thing about what was I going to say? Oh yeah, about you said about evolution being it doesn't care about you. I often think the perfect example is in peacocks. Look at the male peacock. Like, it looks brilliant, but that's sexual selection. So the females like, those amazing tails. But that poor thing, like, that's awful for surviving, and just like it just draws so much attention. It's just obvious prey. There's so many things like that in nature where it's just, as you say, there's no real goal to it. It's just the nature of life. It just keeps evolving, even if it's not beneficial, the opposite of beneficial, bad.
Like, it's good for evolution, but it's bad for us.
Yeah, it's strange when you think, where is the evolution kind of taking us? Because if it's not benefiting the survival of the organisms all the time, then where is it going?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I guess it is. I don't know. It's strange.
That's where, to me, it almost bleeds into, like, this is why I find evolution and just like what's happening in terms of technology so fascinating, because it's like, what is the direction of this thing? Like, it almost seems to be like, I know this is like a super controversial point, because scientists will say, oh, there is no purpose to it, there is no direction, but it seems to be that it almost was destined, like, from the very first emergence of the single-celled organism millions of years ago. Like, that thing has gradually evolved in a certain direction. It's evolved in the direction of complexity and consciousness and sort of power and control over its environment and intelligence as well. Like, life has continually become more intelligent. And if that process continues, and if intelligence does continue to expand, like, is there a limit to this thing? Because right now humans are the most intelligent thing we know. But
Yeah.
will intelligence just keep on expanding and just keep changing? And how, like, what, like, I don't know. It's sort of like, what does the long-term future of life look like?
I don't think anybody can answer that question, really. I don't know. Yeah, it's maybe with the intelligence comes. Well, I feel like we're this intelligent, but our intelligence, like, outweighs our what I'm trying to say, like, sovereignty, like our ability to actually be conscious of because we're not 100% conscious of what we're doing all the time, are we? Because otherwise we wouldn't have to study the body, because we'd be like, every time there's a disease, you'd like consciously tell the white blood cells to go and attack it, because you'd know what your body is. So, like, the 5% or whatever percentage of us that does the thinking is the conscious bit. It still has, I don't know, it's got all the intelligence, but it doesn't have all the consciousness, if you kind of see what I mean. So it's kind of, I feel like we're kind of misguided, because at the end of the day, we're all monkeys just trying to survive, yet we're ridiculously intelligent, way too intelligent for it.
Yeah.
And we keep making these, we don't really know why we're making these phones, as you say, to what end. We just don't really know what we're doing.
We don't. That's the scary thing. We're just like these. We think that we're all clever and we've got our shit together because, we've got, cities and the internet, and we've got governments,
Yeah.
and religions, and we think, oh yeah, we've got all this sorted out. But at the end of the day, we're just this crazy monkey on a rock in the middle of the darkness,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
pretending we know what the hell this thing is when we don't even know how it started. We've got absolutely no idea how it ends, and there's almost
don't know
something
where
like,
it's going.
we don't know where it's going. It's and when you start to think like that, you can kind of terrify yourself and freak yourself out a little bit, and you got to sort of bring yourself back down to earth a little bit. But it's also a good thing, I think, to appreciate how little we know, and that's why I kind of find I find both religion and atheism to be a little bit disappointing, because it's like both of them assume they know everything and that their way of viewing the world is final.
That seems to be the case with just a lot of people at the moment. Like, people aren't, because people don't realize that. I think a lot of people don't realize that we know, next to nothing. You become overly confident in your own views to the point where you won't even hear any others, and you kill others for not having the same views as you in the end. It's at the end of the day, you could just, talk to the person with a different view and get it solved and not kill them. But
is there anyone in your family who's super into religion?
My grandma, she's religious.
Where is
That's the
she?
person I went to church with. She's down in Essex, near London. She just lives outside London, Minster.
No, like what is she? What religion
Oh,
is she?
sorry, I thought you said where is she?
No.
She's just Christian. Yeah, just a Protestant Christian. So and yeah, so my mum, so she's my maternal side. My mum never really carried on the religion bit. I don't know. I guess yeah, didn't see the need to, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
religion.
It's a big question. Right, Owen, we've been going for 1 hour 45.
We have indeed.
I was
Wow.
going to bring this thing to an end about 45 minutes ago, but we went on this crazy detour talking about ghosts and religion and AI and
Who knows what
all
we
this
talked
crazy
about?
shit. So yeah, right. I'm going to put this thing, when I finish it, I'm going to hit stop recording. I'll put this thing on YouTube, that's all right.
All right, very good.
Stick it on Facebook as well. I'm hoping to keep doing these, like this little podcast throughout the whole lockdown thing. I was
Yeah.
thinking right at the start of lockdown that I might just have to, like, because I don't have access to the studios at the university anymore, so I was thinking, I might just have to sort of bring it to an end. And I only managed to record for one term, actually, because term one I was just getting used to the station and didn't really know anything. And then term two, I actually started recording podcasts.
Yeah.
And then term three, the world ended. So that kind of put a bit of a stopper
Put a
in that. So
spanner
I
in the
only,
works.
yeah, so I only had one term of using that studio. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep this thing going. I'll do it on Skype. Because apparently
Yeah.
that's how all the BBC and all the fucking media, they're all just, everyone's using Skype now, aren't they? So
Yeah, as long as it's not Zoom. Have you seen Zoom just got banned by like governments and everything? It's got no
That's-
security. Yeah,
I've
people
heard-
realise it's like the security is awful. So I mean, it's fine for private use, I guess, but governments are realising, yeah, we probably shouldn't use this because it's just open to hackers.
I saw
And,
the thing about the UK government not using it.
Yeah, I believe several other governments, and even like Google and Amazon, like workers, they're not allowed to use it or anything, just to in case their secrets get stolen or whatever, and their
I'm not
profits
using
get.
it because it's become like the hip thing. Like, why can't people just use Skype? Skype's been around for like years.
Yeah, I
Even
swear
to, like, Facebook
Skype can
Messenger.
do pretty much everything that Zoom can. I don't know why everyone's using it, but who knows?
I've heard stuff about TikTok as well. Have you heard that? About because apparently TikTok's like funded by the Chinese government and they're using it to like spy on us.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's another weird craze that has come about in the last few
using
years.
it?
TikTok. No, I remember when it first came out. What, 2 years ago? I had it for a while. Then after a while, I kind of realised, like, what am I doing? What is this? It's strange. Like you're just filming 5 seconds of you dancing or something. It's just a bit weird.
It's like addictive though, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like a lot of social media. It just becomes a trap. And no, but I haven't got it at the moment. But it's now even like I'm getting to the point where my 50-year-old uncle was sending me a TikTok, and it's just that's strange. That's so strange. It's just so strange. When it was only made like 2 years ago.
I remember first signing up for. I remember I'm slightly older than you.
Oh,
I'm
you're
23. How old are you? Are you 19, 18?
18. I'm a young
18,
one.
so I'm 5 years older than you. I remember when I was like debating with my friends whether we should stop using MySpace and go over to Facebook.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I was on the MySpace side of things. I was like,
I've-
no, we should stick to MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace was before my time, if I'm honest. I never
It's
used
still going.
MySpace. Yeah, I've heard. I see a lot of memes about MySpace, but no, I never used it. I remember, I don't know, just the explosion of technology just scares me sometimes. It's just, I don't know.
There was a thing called Friends Reunited. Have you heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
That was years and years ago. That was like the thing. And then it was MySpace. And then we all jumped over to Facebook. And Facebook has sort of managed to hold on to a lot of people, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just become this massive, I don't know, that thing that our lecturer said stuck with me. She said, if the service is free, then you're the product.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good statement, especially for Facebook, because it's so true. That it's just it's just become a monolith of this like data. I don't know, this data scene that we're in at the moment, where data is like, you had the gold rush, now in the data rush. It's just very strange.
Say like information is the information
It's
is
the
to
new
the
gold or the new oil. Yeah,
yeah.
very
Do you have
strange.
Snapchat?
Yes, yeah, I do actually. I do use that a lot. Although I use it for messaging, but then whenever they introduce I don't know if you have Snapchat, they have like a
No.
magazine feature, which is just it's just like the worst tabloids, and it's just on the front page of Snapchat, and you always have to scroll past it to get to your messages. So it's just basically ads in the middle of your messages, which is
Oh,
ridiculous.
fuck
And
that.
people they are the most horrendously written and just horrendously clickbait, just the pits of like everything I hate about journalism, or like the
Can't
bad
you
side
pay
of
and get rid of
journalism.
the apps?
No, because they're a feature. You
What?
can't. Well, yeah, they're just
So they're selling the apps. They're selling the ads as like
yeah. So
a
like below all
benefit of
the
the
stories
product.
where all your friends are, it says it's for me, and then it's just all these. Look at all these magazines.
I
I
can't
don't know
really
if
see.
you
It's
can see
kind of
that.
lit up, but yeah. Well, you got to scroll through all of them before you even get to anything.
No, this is just what they have on offer for you, and they're
Oh,
just some of them are just like random influencers. So it would just be a random person um,
I
who
hate
might not
that
even be in the
phrase.
country. Yeah, it's awful. But just a random person who just got like 2,000 followers and just posts selfies. It's well, I don't know you. Why is your selfie on my feed, or why is your video or whatever on my feed? It's strange. It's like something you don't sign up for, but then people still get addicted to. Um, yeah, it's like a weird subscription, but they decide the subscriptions for you. It's weird thing, but I do use it for messaging. So yes.
Right. Right, I'm gonna hit stop recording on this thing.
Yep. Fair
It's been
enough.
stay on the line for a little bit because I want to talk to you after I stop recording about some stuff.
Hmm.
Right, thanks for coming on, Owen. It's
That's
been
all right.
awesome. We should
It's
do
been a
this again at
pleasure.
some point. And
Yeah,
next year
it's
I'll
been
get you
great
in the
fun.
actual studio.
Yeah,
We might
hopefully.
not be able to have a drink in the studio, but
Oh.
we might have to figure something out. Right, stay on the line. I'm gonna hit stop recording. Thanks, man.